Hi everyone. Today we are going to be looking at the group by clause. Okay, group by clause as part of the Postgres series that we have started. If you have not watched my previous videos on this series, I highly encourage you to go watch those from the beginning. So what is group by clause? A group by clause is used in SQL query to divide rows or records into groups. What do we mean by that? You could want to divide some of your records into different segments or groups. Then for each group, you can apply an aggregate function. Remember the aggregate function I taught you in my last video where we talked about average, we talked about count, we talked about sum, we talked about maximum or even minimum. Okay, so that means for each group, then you can apply these different aggregate functions. So what group by helps you in essence is that it helps to specify how your data in your result is grouped. So let's cite an example right here before we actually get into coding. Let's take a look at this table right here. You have name column, fruits, and amounts. What this is showing right here are the names of those that purchase some fruits from a grocery store and the amount of those fruits. Okay, if you take a look at this, you have John, you have Eric, and you have Sam. Those are the three guys right here. Okay, and the fruit they bought and the amount. Okay, now if you want to group these by the name column, by this name column, that means that we can segment this data into three names: John, Eric, and Sam, that are part of this, right? So now if I want to get the total amount that each person spends at the grocery store, what do? We can just do a grouping right here, in which case you can see that if we group by name, I would say Eric spends $3 overall, right? How did I get that? If you take a look at this is Eric, this is also Eric. Eric spends $1 and $2, okay, and that gives us $3. Okay, what about John? What about John right here, guys? Let's take a look at John as well. This is John, this is John, this is John, and this is John. John spends $2 plus 4, that is 6, plus 5, that is 11, and plus 7, that is 18. That is why you see 18 right here, guys. I hope you get that right now. You see that what we are doing is that we are grouping by a particular column. You could group by one column, you could group by two columns. So basically you can group by multiple columns, one or two columns, okay? But in this case, I'm only showing you grouping by name first, by one column, okay? And we are trying to calculate the sum or the total amount that each person spends at the grocery store, okay? What about Sam? What about Sam? We have Sam right here, we have Sam right here, we have Sam right here, we have Sam right here. Okay, Sam spent $6 right here on Apple. Orange is $1, that's $7. And then another orange right here, that is $15. 7 plus 8 is 15. Okay, and then spends another $1 on orange, that is 16. And that is why you have 16 right here. Okay, I hope you guys understand this right now. Like I said, if you're talking about the group by, what that means is that you are trying to segment your data. This is my data. I'm trying to segment this data into different segments or different groups based on a particular column or based on multiple columns. What I did right now was based on just this one column, okay, this name column. Okay, what about if we want to segment it based on two columns right here? We can do name and fruits. Okay, we want to get the total amount that Eric spent on each fruit. John spent on each fruit and Sam spent on each fruit. In that case, you are grouping by name and by fruit. Okay, now how do we do that? Let us look at Eric. We have Eric right here, apple, and Eric right here, apple. You can say 1 plus 2 is 3. Eric did not buy orange, therefore we don't see Eric and orange right here, right? We don't see orange with Eric right here. What about if you go to John? Okay, we can have this. This is John with apple. John with apple. John bought apple. Let's look at this. This is John bought apple. Do we have another John bought apple? This is another John bought apple. You can see that, guys. So that is 4 plus 5. That is 9. That is why we have 9 right here. Okay. What about John and orange? John bought orange. John bought orange right here. Let us take a look. John also bought an orange right here. That is 2 plus 7. And that gives you 9. Okay. What about Sam? Sam bought apple. Where Sam bought apple right here. Let us see. I think that's the only place Sam bought apple. That is $6. And that is why we have $6 right here. Okay. What about Sam bought orange? Sam bought orange. Let us take a look. Sam bought orange here. Sam bought orange here. Sam bought orange here. That is 1 plus 8 is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. That is why we have 10 right here. Can you see now, guys? If you notice that in this first case, we only have 3 rows because we only grouped by name and we have 3 names. But here we have how many rows? 5 rows right here. You see that we have more rows. Why is that? Because we are grouping by 2 columns. Because for each of the fruits we have John, because John bought apple and orange. That's why we have 2 Johns here. Sam also bought apple and orange. That's why we have 2 Sams here. I hope this gives you some sort of intuition into how this is working. Group by helps you to group your data or your records into different segments, into different groups, based on what you are trying to solve, based on what you are trying to do. You are going to do that grouping, and then you are going to apply aggregate functions, just like sum. Like in this case, we applied sum. Right? All right, guys, let us now go to pgadmin and let us code out something as part of our DVD rental database tables that we have been exploring. Okay, so let's do that. So now we are going to be exploring the payment table that is part of our DVD rental database tables. Let us first of all do a select star just to remind ourselves what we have in the payment table. If I run this right here, very good. You can see that we have the payment ID, we have the customer ID, we have the staff ID. The staff ID, that's the ID of the staff that attended to the customer, the rental ID, and then we have the amount, okay, and then we have the payment date. Remember that the payment ID is just an ID that helps to track each of the payments that is being made. Okay, now what about if you have been asked to find the number of payments made by each customer? You want to find the number of payments made by each customer. Think of that word when you say made by each customer. What do you think they are trying to talk about right there? That means they are trying to tell you that they are trying to tell you to group by customer. Okay, what do we have as part of our table here that can give us some footprint of customer? That is customer ID. Okay, so that means that we want to group by customer ID. We want to have some segments based on the customer ID, just like I showed you in the previous presentation I just made right now. Okay, so now we want to get the number of payments made by each customer. That means I'm going to group by the customer ID And what can I also use to calculate the number of payments? That is payment ID. Remember that for each payment, there is going to be a corresponding ID. That's payment ID. Okay, so now what do we do, guys? What I can do right here is that I will say customer ID. I will say customer ID. Okay, and then remember, I want to get the number of payments. That means I'm going to do a count of the payment ID. And remember that I'd shown you how to use count before. Okay, I will bring this right here now. Okay, I'll bring this right here. So now we have count of payment ID. Remember, I've also taught you using alias, so I will have that as number of payment. Okay, so now if you look at this, you have select customer ID, and then you are saying that I want to count the payment ID, which is number of payment ID. And in this case, remember, we want to group by the customer ID. Therefore, you have to put our keyword right here, group by. Group by what? Group by customer ID. Take note. You need, because you want to group by the customer ID. Remember, you take note that you must always put whatever categorical column that you have right here, any categorical column that you have right here, you also need to put it in the group by statement. If you don't put it in the group by statement, then you are going to have an error. Okay, so now this is my aggregate function that I'm using on the payment ID. I want to count the payment ID based on the customer ID. So this group by, what is going to do for us is that it's going to group all these customer IDs. You can see I have 341, 341, 341, 341, 341. I have 342, 343. I have 345, 344. It's going to group those customer ID into their respective IDs and then count the number of payment ID for each customer ID. Do you get that? Now let us execute, guys. Very good. You see, I've executed right here. This customer ID 184 has made 20 payments. Let us do something right here. I've taught you order by. Let us order this thing by customer ID so that our customer ID can be in ascending order. Okay, remember, if you don't put ASC, it means it is in ascending order. I've taught you that before. If you have not watched that, please go and watch my previous video where I taught you guys order by clause. If I run this, you can see right that customer ID 1 made 30 payments. Customer ID 2 made 26 payments. Customer ID 3 made 24 payments. You can see that now, guys, that we have been able to group this table, our payment table, into a situation whereby we group or segmented by customer ID. Do you get that right now? What about if we want to get the sum that each customer has also spent on goods right here, on renting films, rather on renting films? We want to get the sum of the amount each person have spent. Okay, I'm going to use my alias also. I will say total amount spent. If we run that, take note, this customer ID is still going to be here. Okay, it's still going to be in the group by column. Also, let us order by the customer ID column. Okay, this customer ID is your categorical column that you are using to group by. Take note of that. So if I run this, all right, you can see that I have run this right here. You can see the total amount spent by each customer, right? Because customer ID 1 is spending 114.70. You can see that, guys, now that this is pretty easy. What about if you want to get the average amount that each person spent? Remember also, I taught you how to use the average. in our last video, and I also taught you how to use this round function, right? So here is calculating the average, and then I'm rounding the result into 2 decimal places, and then I am calling it average amount spent. Okay, I take away that comma, then I'm going to run this. You can see now, guys, that customer ID 1 spends an average of $3.82. Okay, if you want to even verify that, you can divide this 114.70 by 30, because this is total amount spent and this is the number of payments made. Okay, what about if we want to get the minimum amount that each customer also spends, and also the maximum amount that each customer spends? Okay, we can do this. I want to get the minimum amount spent by each customer and also the maximum amount spent by each customer. Remember, we are grouping by customer ID because we are segmenting by customer. We want to see all these different aggregate, all these different statistics. We want to see them per customer for each customer. Okay, if I run this right now, guys, good, you can see now I also have the lowest amount spent by each of these customers. 99 cents is the lowest spent by customer ID 1, and the highest spent was $9.99. I hope you guys understand that right now. This is pretty easy, and I hope that with this you are able to understand how to use the group by clause. Take note that the group by clause can also have another column. Like I told you earlier, you can have multiple columns. And an example is that, what about if you have been asked to group by both customer ID and staff ID? Now that is also something you can take a look at. In that case, I will say staff ID. Okay, if you take a look at this now, you see something right here, that we have this categorical column, we also have this categorical column, right? This category column, right? So in the case of these two columns that we want to group by, you have to make sure that this also is right here. Okay, you also want to make sure that this also is right here, otherwise you are going to get error. So now we are grouping by both customer ID and staff ID, just like I showed you in the previous presentation, where I grouped by the by name and also by fruits. Okay, if you take a look at this, we have 599 rows, right? But now, that was when we only grouped by customer ID. But now, since we want to group by customer ID and staff ID, what do you guys think? Are we going to have the same number of rows? We are likely to have more number of rows right here, and that is because for each customer now is going to be broken down. Each customer ID is going to be broken down into staff ID, right? Because in this data we have staff ID 1 and staff ID 2. So let us run this and let us take a look. If I execute this, very good, guys, you can see something right here. Now you can see how many rows do we have right now. 1198. You can see that it has increased. Okay, I hope you guys get that right now. You can see what we have right now. We have customer ID 1 now is broken down into staff ID. You now have staff ID 2 and staff ID 1. So that means that customer ID 1 at some point was attended to by staff ID 2. At some other point, it was also attended to by staff ID 1. When it was attended to by staff ID 2, what was his total amount he spent? He spent $53.85. When it was attended to by staff ID 1, he spent $60.85. Can you see that now? When it was attended to by staff ID 2, the highest he spent was $9.99, However, for staff ID 1, he spent $7.99. I hope you guys understand this now. This is how you can leverage the group by clause. Again, it helps you to group your records into segments based on what column you are considering. It could be one column, it could be multiple columns. I've showed you how you can use one column. That was when I used customer ID, and I've also showed you how you can use two columns. In this case, we use customer ID and staff ID. I would encourage you to go explore more on this group by and also even these different tables, so that you can be rest assured that you've really understood this concept. All right, guys, I hope you really get this right here. If you have not subscribed to this channel, I highly encourage you to go subscribe right now, because we have a lot of more videos we are going to be publishing to you guys. Okay, and I'll highly encourage you to click on the bell so that you can be notified whenever we release any of our videos. Also, don't forget to comment, like, and share our videos. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next class. Bye.